Hey, welcome back. I was in my kitchen the other day, making a chai, and as I reached for the nutmeg grater, I just stopped. I held this little brown seed in my hand. This thing I've seen 1,000 times in my mother's cooking, in holiday desserts, and I thought, this is it. This unassuming thing was once worth more than gold. It started wars, built empires, and led to one of the most horrific, forgotten chapters in human history. All for a bit of flavor. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is the Curiosity Compendium. Today, we're peeling back the layers on a story that's as dark as it is fascinating. This is episode 30, The Spice Race, How Nutmeg Started an Empire and a Genocide. So, let's set the scene. It's the early 16th century in Europe. Pepper is precious, but there's something even more exotic, more mysterious, nutmeg. And it only grew in one place on Earth. A tiny archipelago in the far eastern seas, the Banda Islands. Think 10 specks of land, volcanoes jutting out of deep blue water, covered in fragrant nutmeg trees. For the kings and merchants of Europe, nutmeg was a miracle. It was a status symbol, a supposed cure for the plague, and the ultimate culinary luxury. Controlling it meant controlling not just wealth, but power and prestige. The Portuguese found the islands first, but they were just setting up trading posts. The real frenzy began when the Dutch arrived. The Dutch East India Company, the VOC, wasn't just a company. It was a sovereign corporate empire with the power to wage war, negotiate treaties, and colonize territory. And they wanted a monopoly. They looked at the Bandas and didn't see a homeland for the 15,000 or so Bandanese people who had been trading spices for millennia. They saw a factory, a nutmeg factory that needed to be owned completely and utterly. The Bandanese, however, were seasoned traders and fiercely independent. They had deals with multiple powers, the Portuguese, the English, the Dutch, playing them off each other. To the VOC, this was unacceptable. A monopoly can't have leaks. So in 1621, the company's most ruthless Governor-General, Jan Pietersen Cohen, decided to make an example. He arrived with a fleet and an army. What followed wasn't just a battle. It was a systematic campaign of terror. Villages were burned. Leaders were executed in mock trials. Thousands of Bandanese were massacred. The survivors, maybe 1,000 people, were enslaved and shipped off to other Dutch colonies. The islands were virtually emptied. And here's where the story takes an even darker turn. To work the nutmeg plantations, the Dutch brought in enslaved people from across Asia and convict labor. But they needed overseers, planters loyal only to the company. So they carved up the islands into perkin, or nutmeg gardens, and handed them to former soldiers and employees. These were the perkineers. And to ensure not a single nutmeg seed could escape to grow elsewhere and break their monopoly, the Dutch drenched every nutmeg for export in lime, rendering it infertile. They controlled the entire life cycle, from the soil to the spice rack. But empires always have cracks. And in this story, the crack was a tiny, overlooked island in the Bandas called Run. It was here that the English had managed to cling on, making a tenuous treaty with the locals. For years, Run was a thorn in the Dutch side, this little island full of Englishmen and nutmeg trees. The conflict over this speck of land became so intense that when the dust finally settled decades later, it was actually part of a grander swap. In 1667, the Treaty of Breda was signed. The Dutch formally gave up a remote, swampy island they controlled in the New World in exchange for the English finally leaving Run, cementing the Dutch nutmeg monopoly. That swampy island the English got? They renamed it. They called it New Amsterdam. Today, we call it Manhattan. Let that sink in for a moment. The island that is now the heart of global finance, the city I walk through every day, was once traded for a nutmeg-producing rock on the other side of the world. The ghosts of that spice race are literally in the ground beneath Wall Street. I think about this from my perspective as an engineer and an entrepreneur. We talk about disruptive technology, about market capture, about ruthless efficiency. The VOC was arguably the most successful corporation in history by those metrics. They innovated in logistics, in finance. They essentially invented the modern stock market. They had a vertically integrated supply chain that would make any tech giant today envious. But this is the dark, ugly foundation of that success. It was built on a calculus of human suffering where lives were a line item, and genocide was a business strategy. It's the ultimate cautionary tale of what happens when profit is the only metric, when human beings are reduced to obstacles or instruments. So what happened to the nutmeg monopoly? Well, nothing lasts forever. In the late 18th century, a Frenchman named Pierre Poivre, yes, Peter Pepper, smuggled out viable nutmeg seedlings. And later, the British, during the Napoleonic Wars, took over the Bandas and spread the cultivation to their own colonies, like Grenada in the Caribbean. The spell was broken. Nutmeg became just another spice. Today, you can buy it for a few dollars at any grocery store. We grated on eggnog, completely unaware of the blood and empire that once seasoned it. That's the real takeaway for me. History isn't just in textbooks or grand monuments. It's in the ordinary things that surround us. It's in the spices on our shelves, the streets of our cities, the echoes of choices made centuries ago for reasons we've forgotten. When I grate nutmeg into my chai now, I taste more than flavor. I remember the Bandanese. I think of the absurd, tragic chain of events that connected those islands to this island. It's a reminder to look closer, to question the origins of the ordinary. Because the most world-altering stories are often hidden in plain sight. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. If this story shifted your perspective, share this episode with someone. Tell them about the spice on their shelf. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this has been the Curiosity Compendium, a production of Light Knot Studios. You can find more episodes and support the show by visiting Light Knot Studios at lightknotstudios.com. Until next time, stay curious.